Edify Show with special guest, Erik Gow. And now, the host of the Edify Show, Elliott.
Hi everyone, welcome to the Edify Show. Today, this is going to be a cool interview. We've got an interview with Erik Gow, who plays political insider Edwin Mitchell. And he was a great guy. I'm interviewing him on the set of Wind Calls the Heart. I hope you enjoy it. Let's take a look. What was it like when you first, jumped into Wind Calls the Heart? Tell me about what you knew about the show or what you even had heard about it. Because I know it's kind of a smaller acting community, isn't it?
Yeah. So Vancouver is a small little tight-knit community. And there's certain shows that they shoot in Vancouver. I mean, everybody probably, even without knowing it, knows shows that shoot in Vancouver. So it's one of those staples. I mean, it's been around for 10, now moving on 11 years.
11 years.
Shooting in town where I think the only other show is like Supernatural in terms of like that length. So it's seeing all of these actors that I've known in the past. To loop back, I've started binging it. I've been watching it from the beginning and seeing so many people that I know just from all over the community. So it's been pretty great to sort of step into that. And it feels like such a yes, I've arrived in Vancouver acting now because I am now on Wind Calls the Heart.
Now you're part of the massive tradition. Now I understand you teach acting too.
I do.
So I'm sort of kind of curious, what's the number one piece of advice you give to anybody like, gosh, I really want to be an actor?
Advice to just anyone wanting to be an actor. It's the finding good training. Good training is everything. Finding solid instruction, but actually I'm going to say even more than good training. Find a good community. Because it's not a single job. I mean, even like we're doing the interview and like how many people do we have in the room right now? It's such a collaborative process, either filmmaking.
We're pretty huge. We have 70 people in this
70
room.
people. There's a few in the back there as well. It's finding your friends, finding people who help you run lines, people who help you prepare for auditions, people to shoot your auditions, people to do classes with you. It's such a team collaborative effort that no one really does it alone. So find your community.
That so many people, they seem so similar, that they're artists and they're creatives and just this calling that seems to bring it. They all seem like they have a similar thread. Like every actor that I've talked to on this show, they all seem very similar in one sense, just about the spirit of acting and trying to make it true and developing their own character and all that. When did you decide, when did you know this is what you wanted? When did you find that out about yourself?
I was quite young. I spent a lot of time in hospital as a kid, and at that time, so this was also before streaming and the internet, like we just had dial-up and those things. So,
wow,
but it was,
you look great.
It was lots of, thank you. Lots of reading books, but also I remember being at Children's Hospital in Vancouver and spending, I went to school there. I just spent a lot of time, but I remember there were nurses and they would bring in VHS cassettes for me. I was watching that. And it was either at that point, it's like, I'm either going to be a doctor or I'm going to be an actor. Right. And I got to the point where I was like, I've spent enough time in hospitals at one point where I was like, I'm okay. But I remember just like the amount of joy that brought. And it was like, this is the thing I want to do. And I think that was when I first sort of clicked with it. And then I also did music all growing up. So it was this thing between like music and art. Eventually got into musical theater, or actually first got into like classical singing and opera, and then musical theater, and then stage acting, until finally landed in film acting.
Wow, because there's so much musical talent on this. Everybody's always talking
There's a ton of musical talent on this set.
Right. It's just like, seems like a show just dying for a musical special episode. Sort of a Wind Calls the Heart meets Moulin Rouge or something. Probably that'd be a bad example. I don't know. Sound of Music. Yeah. Wind Calls the Heart means Sound of Music. Let me get myself in trouble. Yeah. But okay, so then do you remember when you first came on? Because just experiencing Hope Valley is so unique. I mean, because I don't know of any other set quite like this where it's all built. What did you think when you first came here?
It was wild. I mean, first off, it's a lovely drive up. Right. I do like an hour drive here, hour drive back, as long as you don't hit traffic. We're by this beautiful equestrian center. You're out in nature, in the woods. It's not like you're on like a studio lot and you go into a big warehouse. You walk out into this sort of like big gravel dirt lot, and then there's all the trailers, and you're it's what they call the circus. And then I remember walking just over, and then you're in this small little frontier town. And it's as idyllic as it looks in sort of the B-roll footage. And you're like, wow, there's the pond. Oh, there's that. There's all of these functional buildings. It's very rare on sets where you see anything that's functional.
Right.
I mean, there's a few buildings where there's not a lot inside, but for the most part, like, we are in the judge's office.
Right.
It looks like a judge's office outside. It has a brick facade. It has all of these things. We've got, I mean, beautiful hardwood floors, much nicer than I have in my home. I mean, I love my home, but I mean, I would love these hardwood floors and some of this molding that's going on.
Yeah, it's really remarkable. I just even like you go into the library and there's actual books. It's just it's almost like walking into a theme park.
I was looking, we shot a scene in here the other day and I was looking at some of the books on the shelf and being like, oh yeah, I'd read that. It's like, oh, maybe between takes I'll steal one of the books and just don't tell Sarah.
Right. Right. Yeah, I was just going to say, you can talk to Sarah about everything. It's just so specific and exact. Yes. And it's just such a playground. It's such a playground for them, you know, as they do that. So when you started learning about, because I know you there were a couple things you were trying to get onto the show with, and then you landed, you know, with where you ended up landing. You know, what did you think about that? I mean, was that one that you were looking at this going, wow, I think I could really pull this one off? Because to me, just talking to you, it seems like you just nailed this.
Yeah, I mean, it's every once in a while, because like as an actor, you're constantly getting auditions, and I mean, it's not an actor's job to go like, oh, I'm not right for this part. There's a whole bunch of other people who will go, no, you're not. So it's the worst habit to get into to start with it. This was one of the ones in the email where I saw the breakdown and then I read the script and I went, oh, okay, yes, I can do that. I mean, I think I was joking with some of the people the other day where like I grew up watching like political satire and Frasier. So you see a character like Edwin Mitchell and you go like, yes, I know how this works. So to be able to just sort of step into it and be natural. And it's such a gift when you get to find characters where you get to bring so many parts of yourself to it, as opposed to, I know one of the hurdles that actors come across, or I'll just speak for myself, is that I'm going to try and be what they want for this role. And the more you can get comfortable being like, I'm going to be me, and if they like that, great. I'm just going to be the most me I can be. And that's such a freeing place as opposed to constantly chasing people's approval and trying to guess what they want.
Now you have a unique experience because we were talking earlier about people that you've run into, people that have been a fan of some of your work, and then you have the unique experience that, did you say it was your uncle and aunt are big fans of the show?
My uncle and aunt are big fans of the show. Talking with them.
So now you've really arrived.
It's that funny thing where, I mean, it's whenever I tell my parents I'm on a show, they're always like, oh, okay, like whether they know it or not, or if it's something that they're really into. And like I do a lot of voiceover in video games and things like that. And unless it's like, oh, is it the Mario game we play? It's like, no. It's like, oh, okay, well, whatever. We'll never see that. Right. But this is a show where like, so my dad is an ex-Mountie. So they've watched some When Calls the Heart. So this was one of the shows as well where they're like, yes, we know that show. Because, you know, I guess all Mounties have to watch Due South and When Calls the Heart. And I'm sure there's a list of a few others also. Right. But my aunt and uncle, I remember having dinner with them last year just around Christmas. And it was that thing where it's like, oh, what are you up to? And usually I'll say what I've been doing. And it's like, oh, that's nice. But it was like When Calls the Heart. And they're just like, what? You're on When Calls the Heart. And it's that... getting, and that little bit of pride you can sort of get is like, I'm doing that thing. I'm so used to doing theater where it's there's sort of like this small community, and like I'll have family and friends from elsewhere who never really get to see that, but to get to do a medium where people can share it, like all of the, I mean, I learned the other day that When Calls the Heart is huge in Australia, which was just like, what? I mean, I'm a huge fan of A Place to Call Home, which is an Australian sort of, I'd say, When Calls the Heart adjacent series. It's a reciprocal love, but it's amazing how far spread that you can share this work.
Yeah, well, it'll be fun because, you know, here you are in, you know, season 10. We're only in 4 episodes out as we're recording this, where you really start getting recognized. Because the one thing you'll start experiencing is these fans, you know, that are out there that we affectionately refer to as the hearties. Yeah. And like we were talking about the Hearties family reunion, that when they did, I want to say like the first, second, third one, it sold out in like 45 seconds.
That's what I've heard.
Yeah. And they're just coming, and it's so neat because like it would be so fun to see you there, because you're just gonna walk down and you'll just see them look at you, just a big smile on their face and, like hugs and high fives and selfies, and they'll just be so cool. And I can already tell talking to you'd be the one that would really give, like you were talking about going bowling with some people that were fans
of a show I used to work, Legends of Tomorrow, and I've met amazing fans from that. But a big philosophy of mine is just like, if you can talk to anyone about something they love,
right,
and something that they have ownership and knowledge about, it's one of the greatest things. I mean, it's funny when it comes to small talk. It's usually, what do you do? Where do you live? How's the weather?
Right.
Those types of things. But if you can ask people like, so what do you love? Like, tell me about something you're passionate about.
Right.
And just to watch someone light up like that is amazing. And it's a really beautiful thing to work in a job where you are a part of the thing they love. You can share that with them. It's that thing that can connect people. Just like if you were a fan of something, and like if I wear the hat of the franchise I like and I see someone on the street and they go, oh, and you have that moment of connecting.
Right.
It's a really exciting thing because there's that like, and I get that with the thing, like when I meet actors and I get to work with them on intellectual properties that I'm a big fan of,
right?
To go, oh wow! So it's, I mean, I'm excited to meet some hearties because also I am like I said, I'm watching the show from the beginning now. I'm in. Like I
started going.
I started. Yeah, it's been 2 weeks. We're 3 seasons in. And we've stopped all the other shows we were watching. They're on hold right now, and it's like, okay, we're getting through this.
It's in the blood. Apparently, you're related to some too, And I'm with you. I tell my kids, if you can do something that's little for you but means something big for someone else, you should always do it. And it's so cool, like you said, when you meet them and you are the franchise, so you're part of the franchise, and they come and they see it, they recognize more the hat, like you represent it to them. Yeah. And you mentioned Frasier.
Yes.
Right? Yeah. The coolest actor I think I've ever met was Kelsey Grammer. The sweetest, coolest, nicest guy. I think that guy would tip somebody that gave him a parking ticket. Like everything was just tip, trying to buy, just the super coolest guy. But that's such a neat thing to me that hangs with me to this day. And it was, I was in the military and we would watch Cheers together and we'd sing the song. We'd all have their barracks doors up, we'd sing the song, and then I told him that, and he was like, I guess his grandfather was a colonel and raised him and all that, but it's such a unique experience, I think, being where you can have such a magnificent effect with somebody else, and then here you're coming on this show, 11 seasons, maybe 12 seasons. They're close to being the top 10, like most seasons of all time. That's like so amazing when you think back on it. So in some sense, you might be coming in early.
Well, it is that amazing thing, and what I love that you said is that idea of when you used to watch with your military friends, like watching Cheers and singing the song. It's that it's a community, like all over the world, people watch When Calls the Heart, and then you are a part of that community. But also, just the way people celebrate Christmas differently, like we do the tree, or we do like Ukrainian Christmas, or we do we open gifts, or we do pajamas on Christmas Eve. Like everyone has the things that they create around it. And like even my partner and I, there are the things that we do now where it's almost like watching a panda, where there's certain things we see like when it happens, like, oh, we got to do that when that happens, or like, oh, that person's there, that means this. And you create your own little sort of like rituals and things around it as well. Every time Henry Gowan's like, oh, that Henry Gowan,
right? When
you're watching something, and it's that you then become involved in it as well. Like, I mean, people do Super Bowl parties and things, but like I know people with shows like When Calls the Heart, etc., was like, I'll do like little menus and things, or like, the season premiere is coming out, and it brings people together.
Oh, you should wait till you see it. I mean, first of all, like they had with the delivery of Rosemary's Delivery, they had hearties out there burning candles. Maybe you haven't heard this.
I have
like
not.
Literally, they were burning candles. That all got set up, for they're burning candles to get ready. That for previous weddings and everything, they'd have like little mini receptions at their houses for these hearty parties. And I mean, there's just nothing quite like it. And, and how you get these little ladies out there buying iPhones, they don't even wanted a smartphone, didn't maybe even have a flip phone, but wanted one so they could tweet to support their favorite. They don't know what trending means. They just want to make sure their favorite show does.
Oh, I love that.
Just so many of them.
I gotta start following the hashtag. I'm really bad with Twitter or X or whatever they're calling themselves now.
I know what happened there. Yeah, I know. It'd be like all of a sudden, whatever. Yeah, but no, I think it's exciting. I think I like the spirit of everything that where you're talking about the impact of everything that you've had, what would be, when you're talking about Legends of Tomorrow, what's like a real stark memory that you have as it's an actor or
it's funny. I've done all sorts of different interviews and podcasts and like fan-centric things on that show. But the funny thing is, I did 2 days of filming for that show. I was on 2 episodes. I have this lovely little knack of I'll go on a show for like a one-off role and then I'll get invited back, or they'll bring me back into the season, or whatever the case is. I've had that happen on like multiple series, which has been wonderful. And it was one of those shows where to see what I did had this huge impact on a bunch of people, but it was such a relatively short period of time for me. I had a wonderful experience on set. One of the show creators, Mark Guggenheim, was directing that episode, and it was his directorial debut, and I got a chat with him, and he was just one of the loveliest human beings.
Right.
That was a highlight for me, getting to meet the cast. The first day I was on set, it was a bunch of improv. It was like basically had the writers had a bunch of prompts being like, oh, this character does these things, and then we spent a couple hours just doing improv, and it was just this fun thing, and it became a web series and that kind of stuff out of just like the outtakes, and it was a ton of fun. But it's that interesting thing where it can seem like something small in the moment, but it can kind of grow outside of itself.
Well, that's what's exciting to find out without knowing why you're back here, and something's going on for season 11, and then to see where it goes. And I've been watching the show for a while as you're starting to get into it, and the good news is it's Hope Valley. You can become mayor. Yeah, so things happen. Yeah,
I mean, I've been watching the mayor races in the earlier seasons. I've been going like, okay, so there's different. Or every time I walk down the main street, I'm like, okay, that shop's empty. Do we have like what does this town need?
Yeah. You're gonna fill the gap. Yeah. Well, great. Well, it was good to get to know you. I'm excited to see where this leads before. And thanks again for being on the show.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thank you.
You bet. And that concludes this episode of the Edify Show. Thank you so much to Erik Gow for spending that time with me, and we'll see you next time on the Edify Show.
Tune in next week for Hearty TV Tuesday. Elliott will be interviewing Viv Leacock on the set of Wind Calls the Heart. You don't want to miss it. Don't forget to like and subscribe on our YouTube page. And never miss a thing when you register at hearties.com, where people around the world are coming together to support inspiring entertainment. And we'll see you next week on The Edify Show.